So the New Orleans Pelicans GM Joe Dumars has been absolutely cooking, but he's not been in the kitchen. In an offseason that a lot of teams have been making absolutely huge splashes. Of course, you know, one of the finals MVPs of the last few years got traded. Ja Morant got traded from the Grizzlies, one of the franchise stars, one of the better Memphis Grizzlies franchise players of all time got traded. And Joe Dumars is sitting there with his hands underneath his lap, and he's just sitting there, he's just chilling. So what is he cooking? Like, what is his plan? Because I wanted to talk about this, and I actually wanted to talk about the very interesting sort of situation that the New Orleans Pelicans have found themselves in regards to their own draft pick, because they have a protected swap. So that's potentially a little bit confusing. It seems like they've got a very good chance of getting a good draft pick in the next draft, which has been seemed to be quite volatile. There's no like guaranteed 1, 2, 3, kind of like there was in this last draft that we just had. So I wanted to talk about it because at the end of the day, Joe Dumars, he's running back the roster that went 26 and 56 last season. He even did, of course, trade his unprotected pick to move up for Derek Queen, which was, you know, a move, but it ended up being the number 9 pick, so it didn't end up being that bad because it could have been a lot worse. Now, I do think that what he's cooking and what he's planning is just simply running it back with this young team, because this is a pretty young team still at the end of the day. You know, you've still got your building blocks that you can build around Jeremiah Fears. As I did say, you've got Derek Queen there. You've got Zion, who's 26, so he's still young enough. DeJounte Murray is there. Trey Murphy III has been thrown around in many different trade situations, and it just seems like the asking price is too high. So who knows what they're going to be doing, but at the end of the day, they are sitting on a pretty intriguing draft situation, because of course you run up Tankathon, you want to simulate a lottery here real quick, and it'll be interesting to see what kind of happens, because in this case the New Orleans Pelicans keep their own number 5 pick and they don't give it away. And I think in this case the Bucks give away their pick to Atlanta, because this is the New Orleans Pelicans situation right now. They have they have a swap with Milwaukee, but if it's outside of the top 4, Atlanta will get the worst of the two, if that makes sense. So they got a swap best with Milwaukee, but if either of those picks is outside of the top 4, Atlanta's taking it. So the Atlanta's actually got a pretty good chance of a good pick themselves, to be fair. Looks like Milwaukee might be getting screwed in this next draft, unless they get really lucky, potentially, unless both of the Pelicans and the Bucks end up in the top 4. Which could happen with the new lottery system. I don't have it in front of me what the new lottery system does entail. But for the most part, you want to be in the top 4 to top 10 worst teams in the league. And if you do look at the standings here, that is actually about where the Pelicans were, to be fair, because they weren't even the worst team in the Western Conference. They ended up being the 5th worst team in the Western Conference. And then, of course, they were a lot better than a lot of other teams as well. So they ended up being, what, the 8th worst team, 7th worst team in the entire league. That's exactly where they want to be. So I think that, honestly, Joe Dumars is just sitting there and he's like, you know what, I'm actually just going to run back the exact same roster, the same roster that ended up being the 7th worst team in the league, and we're going to get a pretty good chance at a high draft pick with these new odds. And honestly, part of me can't even blame the guy, you know, because at the end of the day, they have made some pretty poor trades in the past regarding their own draft picks. You know, a lot of things could have gone a little bit differently if they did hold on to their own pick. They could have had a pick in last year's stacked draft. So he's kind of been in the kitchen overcooking a little bit. I think in this case, he's probably not doing necessarily the wrong thing. And I think a lot of Pelicans fans probably feel that way as well. You can see this guy here did just say the only moves needed to be made was getting rid of Looney and then maybe getting rid of Jordan Poole. Just stand back, let the team have an injury-free chance to play together. And honestly, I can't really blame them that much, to be fair, because at the end of the day, is that not kind of what you want to do? You want to run your young core together. I know Zion's 26. I know he's getting a bit older. I know he's probably cursed the team since he got in the league. But, you know, it does make a little bit of sense to me. You know, like, he isn't doing anything, but at the end of the day, what could they do? Because Joe Dumars himself said when he made that trade, he traded the unprotected pick to move up and then pick his boy, the guy that he really wanted, obviously, Derek Queen. He even said in that case he wasn't expecting them to make the playoffs. So Joe Dumars does not view this as a championship roster. I don't view this as a championship roster. I think anyone that has any level of sanity doesn't view this as a championship roster. And I don't think that trading Trey Murphy would get them there. Now, I do think that at one point they probably are going to need to trade Trey Murphy, you know, given the fact that you easily could get 2, maybe 3 first-round picks for him. And, you know, in the past, the Pelicans have fluffed around with their own picks and have made mistakes in that sort of aspect. So I think that that's something you can do. Maybe you got to get rid of Jordan Poole. I don't know what team wants him. Do the Celtics want him? He handles the ball a lot. He's a very inefficient shooter. But at the same time, he can have flashes of just pure greatness. I'm going to be honest. Like, I've had Jordan Poole in my fantasy teams before, and sometimes this guy can put up a lot of points. But I don't know, Dan. The thing is, we've never really gotten healthy Zion season. I like Zion. I think he's fun to watch. Once again, he's someone that I've just gone back to the well, and I've picked him in my fantasy teams every single time. So it'll be interesting to see, you know, what is this roster going to do? I think they're just going to do exactly what they did last year. They're going to finish in the 4th to 10th worst in the league. They're not going to be one of the 3 worst teams in the league. I think that's a very special, very sad place to be. I think the Kings are unfortunately locked up in there. I also think on top of that, you've probably got the Bucks are going to be locked up in there. I know a lot of people have very high hopes for the Bucks, but I think they're going to give the rookies, or as the young guys, a lot of run in that team. So I do think that's going to be one of the worst teams in the league. And then on top of that, you know, who else could potentially stink it up? Who's gotten worse? Because the Pacers have gotten a lot better. The Wizards have gotten a lot better. The whole Eastern Conference necessarily has gotten a lot better. You know, the Grizzlies, is it going to be, you know, the Jazz have gotten better. I think the Jazz are going to be better than they were last year. You know, I think it could be a case of the Pelicans, the Grizzlies, the Kings fighting out in the Western Conference to be some of the worst teams. That's actually quite crazy to me. You know, it's not even going to be the East, in my opinion, which is surprising. But let me know what you think about that one in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.